Hello everyone and welcome to another incredible game that just finished from round 11 of this year's Tata Steel Masters tournament. It is Wei Yi versus Max Warmerdam, and this game, I don't know if you've seen my previous game, Norbek versus Women's World Champion Ju Wenjun. That game, I'm sure if you've seen it, your head is still spinning, so I would recommend not watching this one. If you've seen the previous one, you just might fall out of your chair. This game is so... I don't know which one is more complicated, but... as usual, you guys will be the judge of that. But yeah, I mean, there are a lot of chaotic players in the world, but when you're 2740 like Wei Yi, and you still have this style of play, you know, you're basically the embodiment of chaos itself. This game is so hard to look at, so difficult to calculate. You will absolutely love it. So let's check it out. He's facing Max Warmerdam, who, again, is unable to play a not interesting game, even though he lost the two previous games. Both of them were incredibly interesting. Let's see what happened here. So Wei Yi, with the white pieces, opens with pawn to e4. We have pawn to e5, and now bishop to c4, going for bishop's opening, knight to f6, and now pawn to d3. We have bishop to c5, and now knight to c3. So still waiting with the development of the kingside knight. Pawn to c6, preparing to strike in the center with d5, and now pawn to f4 in the style of the King's Gambit or the Vienna. Pawn to d5 now, much like you would, you know, in a folk beer attack against the King's Gambit. E captures on d5, and now knight to g4. And here, Wei Yi actually spent 48 minutes, almost 50 minutes on his next move, and he played knight to f3. And what do you make of this? Why is he allowing, you know, pieces to land on f2? And should Max put a piece on f2? And which piece? Well, the answer is no. You definitely shouldn't. Now, bishop to f2 check. Doesn't really do all that much. King to f1, and if you've ever played the King's Gambit, you know that the king is perfectly fine on f1. Now you have to ask yourselves, okay, if we just attack the knight, where is the what's happening to the bishop? What's happening to the knight? Now you're just gonna have to trade. You're gonna have to play knight to e3 check, and after everything gets traded, okay, nothing spectacular happening here. F captures on e5. White has a wonderful center here. For example, knight captures bishop. Knight captures. After pawn captures, and yeah, it's the bishop here is hanging. You have to move it. Then the queen comes into the game. You can castle. So not castle, but you can move the king, get the rook into the game, and everything is perfectly fine. So bishop to f2, not the most precise, but you know, if you ever played the King's Gambit, you know that you should not do that. However, knight to f2 does look very appealing, attacking the queen and the rook. But here, Wei Yi's idea, after thinking for almost 50 minutes, was queen to e2. And now, after knight captures rook on h1, queen captures on e5 with check, and after queen to e7 blocking, and now you're probably wondering, okay, there's no attack, why'd you give up the rook? It's a full rook. The idea was knight to e4. And now, you probably can't believe that this is even possible. C captures on d5, or you capture the queen and you give him the full center, because the knight is not escaping from there. The knight here also covers the f2 square. So C captures on d5, bishop captures, and now queen captures on e5, but now knight captures on e5. And the bishop on c5 is hanging, so you can't castle here. You're going to have to move the bishop to b6. The engine is saying bishop to g1, but let's, you know, be reasonable here. Bishop to b6, and now knight captures on f7. And this is as good as lost for black. If you castle, then you run into a lot of nasty discoveries here. For example, knight d to f6, knight f to d6 with check, and after the king moves, you will take the bishop here, and after rook captures on c8, now bishop captures on b7, attacking the rooks here. And if knight to a6, connecting the rooks, you don't care. You're just going to play c3, prevent rook captures on c2, and after something like knight to c5, you're going to just capture. Bishop captures, rook captures, you're going to trade here, captures, play d4, and eventually, okay, for the moment you're down a piece, but you will win the knight, so it's not a problem. Something like bishop to d6, bishop to e3, you're gonna move the king and win the knight, or probably the knight will have to give itself up for, you know, at least messing up white's pawn structure, but then white will just be up many pawns, so that's the problem here. So after thinking for some 25 minutes after this knight to f3 move, Max does not go for knight to f2. He actually castles, and now knight to f2 does look very like a very serious threat, but Wei Yi just doesn't care. He plays f captures on e5, and he invites Max to go knight to f2, which he does, knight to f2, and it's perfectly fine. You even should play this. We have queen to e2, and now knight captures on h1. So for the moment, Wei Yi Yi is down a full rook, but he continues the attack. Bishop to g5 goes after the queen. Now comes queen to a5. And okay, what's his idea here? Pawn to d6, just creating a passed pawn here, still being down a full rook. And how should Max continue this? Well, the problem is you can't really bring the knight back into the game due to d4. And okay, the knight will hang next move. So after d6, just bishop to g4. This is the proper way to continue for Max. Now comes bishop to e7, just attacking the rook. Knight to d7. Max would very much love to give up some material back to, ease the pain. But Wei Yi says, nope, here comes the pain. Pawn to e6. And how do you react here? If you capture, then comes the bishop captures, attacks your bishop on g4, so you have to capture. And then after queen captures with check, you will also lose the knight on d7, and white will just be winning here, so you can't do this. So instead, after pawn to e6, we have bishop to a3. This is, again, very nicely played by Max, trying to overload that pawn on b2, which is defending the knight on c3. But just e captures on f7 with check, king to h8, and here Wei Yi castles queenside. He goes right into queen captures on c3 as the pawn here is pinned. So okay, queen captures on c3, and he goes b captures on a3, and he invites the queen to capture on a3, but it's not the best way to go about things. If you play queen captures on a3, king b1, and queen to b4 with check, you can just block bishop to b3, and still, what do? Your rook here will be captured, your knight will be captured, so you might capture here as the bishop is pinned. The bishop cannot recapture, but now just play rook captures on h1. And after pawn to a5, trying to go after the bishop, queen to e1, and now you have to trade queens. Otherwise, the queen is coming to h4, the knight is coming to g5, and black will have all sorts of problems here. So you will trade here, but the endgame is just better for white. That's the problem. Even though black is up the exchange, white has the passed pawn on d6, and that's much more important, has the bishop pair. White will be better here. So the way to continue this, and this was not played by Max, is to play b5 or even better pawn to a5 and then pawn to b5. And now look at this super sharp line. Bishop captures on f8, knight captures on f8, now pawn to a4, sort of stopping b5 but not really. Pawn to b5, bishop to b3, captures on a4, bishop to c4, and now rook to b8 looks very strong, but here comes queen to e8. And it looks very scary, but it would probably go with something like queen to b2 with check, king d2, knight to f2. You don't have to worry about this, as the rook covers the knight and the queen covers the rook on b8, so everything's taken care of. Rook to f1, just going after the knight. The knight has no squares. Queen to b4 check, king to e2, and now, of course, you have to do something. The knight will fall, so you're going to play knight captures on d3. Bishop captures, you're going to eliminate the d6 pawn. And now king to f2, bishop captures on f3, and now king captures on f3. And here, let's say something like g6, assuming that you will be able to find all of this, black can still sort of play, but it will be white who will be better. However, a5, the strongest continuation, or b5, was not played. Max played bishop captures on f3, and now look at this. G captures on f3, and now knight to e5, preparing knight captures on c4. But here, the game is completely winning for Wei Yi, however, only if he finds one incredibly strong move. So feel free to pause the video and try to find this idea for Wei Yi while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations, as I do not believe you were able to do it. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is king to b1. This is the only move that wins the game. Okay, you could go bishop captures on f8 and then king to b1, but you have to play king to b1. It's way cooler to play king to b1 first. And to give you a quick reason why, let's say you play pawn to f4. The simple knight captures on c4, d captures, and now queen to a1 check is a force to draw. King to d2, you're going to play queen to d4 with check, and after king to e1, you have this queen to g1 with check. Beautiful geometry here, and after king to d2, you just repeat queen to d4 check, and so on. If king comes to c1, then you can even capture on f4, and it might even be black who's better, so you're going to have to settle for a repetition. However, after Wei Yi played king to b1, now there's no such possibility. Now if you go knight captures on c4, d captures, there's no move for black. This is just dead lost. What, you have to go after rook captures on f7, but now comes d7, and black resigns. How do you stop d8? You just don't. So that's why after king b1, queen to d4 was played, sort of reinforcing that d7 square and preparing knight captures on c4. But now just rook captures on h1. So, it's move 19, and only now Wei Yi takes back this little bit of material. Knight captures on c4, d captures, and now queen to b6 with check, but just king to c1. And here we have rook captures on f7, and now how do you play this? Well, d7 would be a bit premature. If you play d7 first, then comes queen to d4, and now, okay, the queening square is guarded by the queen and by the rook. You would very happily give up the rook for this pawn and bishop. And after rook to d1, there's again the problem of queen to a1 check, king to d2, queen to d4 check, king e1, and queen to g1 with check, forcing a repetition. So instead, after rook captures on f7, rook to d1 by Wei Yi in the style of Adolf Andersen, although, his move is rook 8 to d1, but okay, we're not picky here. Rook f to f8, trying to help out with the defense of the back rank, and also hoping that Wei Yi takes the rook on f8, even though even that would not save you. Pawn to d7. And now there's really nothing more for Max to do. Rook to g8 was played. Now comes queen to e5. And now, believe it or not, his king is so safe on c1, even though his defenses are shattered. Look at the pawns here, a2, a3, c2, c4. His plan is just to play f4, f5, f6, and win the game. That's his plan, and there's nothing Max can do about that. Max plays rook 8 to d8, again hoping that Wei Yi takes some material, but Wei Yi, again in cold blood, pawn to f4. He's just gonna push that pawn. So pawn to c5, trying to get some, if f5, maybe queen to h6 check, even though even that is lost. But now Wei Yi does take the material. Bishop captures, queen captures on d8, and queen captures on c5. And he was in this position on move 27 that Max Warmerdam resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. So he also had a minute and a half on the clock, which, I mean, is not enough to, for anything. And his position is dead lost. So that's the beauty of sacrifice. Wei Yi sacrificed, in the style of old masters, and that's sort of the mind over matter approach. You give up material to gain the initiative, and later on you build up so much initiative that you can just trade it for all the material you want. And Max was trying to give back material, but even though he thrown all of this material back at Wei Yi, it was still not enough to survive the game, because now, okay, the initiative settled down, but the material difference is just too great, and there's no way, of course, to continue this game. It's not even about material. It's the pass pawn on d7 is too strong, and there's just no way to continue playing this. There's no move you can make here. You can never move the queen. There's nothing here. The pawns will just start marching forward. You will put a queen on d6 to always have d8 ready. If the black queen moves, then you start advancing this pawn, you start advancing this pawn. If it comes to h6, then you also open up this diagonal. There are so many winning ideas here that, of course, Max has no reason or even the will to continue playing this game. So yeah, beautifully done by Wei Yi. Quite a spectacular win. Only 27 moves against Max Warmerdam, but that's the thing. Max, he's an incredibly interesting player. He always plays the most interesting games, and even though he lost, counting this one, he lost 3 of his previous games. All of them are definitely worthy to see, and all of them are absolutely incredible. But what are you gonna do? You win some of them, you lose some of them. I think in 2021 it was in fact his game that got the award of the Queen Sacrifice of the Year, or the Game of the Year, on this channel. So do check it out if you have the time. I will even put it first link in the description below. As he lost 3 games, do check out that one, and you can even praise him a little bit in the comments of that video. So yeah, that's the game. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Very nicely done by Wei Yi. I will now spoil the result of the Gukesh versus Alireza game. So if you haven't seen it, don't watch the video any longer. Alireza and Gukesh drew their game, which means that as Nodirbek won the game, Nodirbek is now the sole leader of the tournament. But 2 more rounds to go. Anything can happen. Just incredible stuff. I'll keep you guys informed. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. The Wei Yi, there we have it, the embodiment of chaos itself. I mean, what a guy. I would like to thank Christopher and Ruth Burkett, Usman Afzal Minas, Juega Ajedrez Teresa, BulletChessThriller.com, and Lana is the best wife in the world for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon. Continuing to check upon your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.